Okay, so we're going to continue and finish up this lab today. Today's July 27th, and we've been working pretty steady all week on this lab assignment 0503 on YouTube. So far, this is part 6, and just glancing at the videos for the first 5 parts, it looks like 30 minutes, 2 hours and 40 minutes, 3 hours and 10 minutes, 5 hours and 20 minutes, 7 hours, 8 hours of work plus the troubleshooting that took in between. So it's taken all week so far, Monday through, well, now today's Thursday, to get to where we are, which is a working login, a working bug list, a working bug editor, a working user list, and semi-working user editor, and of course little bugs here and in between as all software has, and things that we can work on fixing, of course. But you kind of log in with the good credentials, and we go to user list. Now, right off the bat here, if you have roles, I think Grant made a really good suggestion that even if it's a singular role, like Bob Smith here is automatically a developer, I think we should put that in an array. That's going to kind of make things easier. So when I click on edit user, we got this working here, and this is the roles of my user kind of just spit out. And we can see as we're adding and subtracting, the roles are responding. We don't have the update user wired up yet, so that's something to work on and kind of flush out today. However, if let's just take out Doug Gegelman. Okay, that's good. Doug has these 2 roles, and of course Doug has an array of roles. But Bob Smith here, well, that works. So a singular role is working. But I did notice here when I have no roles, we're getting this error. So this is something to also fix. Of course, you can't read a role of null. You have a null roles, you can't do an includes method on null. So that's another thing to fix today. And so we'll start with either one of these tasks. And I suppose the first step is putting all of our roles inside of an array and kind of getting that set up. And so that's not terribly hard, especially we got live data, so there's only one user with a string, and so I can just manipulate that data right. Whoops. Oh, it decided to auto log me in. If I go to users, my Bob Smith, see here's in a role, so I'm going to click that and edit the string role of developer into an array. So if I go into role, I'm going to change this to array and add an item to role. And this is going to say developer, and get rid of, I didn't mean to have this is just index 0 is developer. I don't need an index 1, so I'll remove that field. So I have a role, array, developer, update, document updated, and again, so now that's kind of like step 1, pretty simple to update you to an array of developer. Now just to refresh my user list, if I go back to bug list, user list, that's still working. And so that's simple enough to refactor that. Now new users, we gave the default role of developer, so that's our backend. So I'm going to fire up my backend, and give our new users the role of developer. And the way, let's see, here's my register route. And we're registering a user, email password given in family. Scroll down here, and the way that we'll do that is just by putting some brackets around our role property. So a role is an array, and that array has one, which is developer. Now if we deploy that, I'll go ahead and register a new user, which should just test that the syntax is correct. Alrighty, so let's kind of go back here. Let's log out and let's register for a new account. And first name, we got Bob Smith. Let's have Jane Smith. Jane Smith at gmail.com. Uber secret password. Let's click on I agree. Now, register clicked. Welcome Jane. Jane Smith at Gmail. Not a good password. There we go. Role of developer. If I go to user list, there's Jane Smith, who is a developer. And however, Jane Smith, this is good. She does not have permissions to update roles, right? You have to be a technical manager, right? So because Jane Smith is just a developer, she doesn't see those checkboxes to edit. Now she can update her name, and we don't have this, again, we don't have this button wired up to actually work yet, but this is good that you're just kind of seeing that. If I log back out, log back in as a technical manager, I can see Jane Smith, I can edit user, and on the database, kind of refresh my users. There's Jane Smith, role is an array, Sub-Zero is developer. Sweet. The next thing to fix is on my user list, if no roles are assigned. So that's going to be on my front end. And user list item. And so here we have an edit user. So there's a user editor. And it's basically crashing because there are no rules, so you can't use includes. So here, if your auth payload permissions and can't assign roles, you see this. If the user, so maybe what we do is also put a question mark behind the role. And so there is a user, but there is no role array. So you can't call the includes property on a null role. And so we'll put a question mark behind role, therefore won't call shouldn't call that. So now, well, that's great, except for it's not. And we're getting a different warning. It's no longer crashing. Let's go back to user lists. So our no roles assigned, Charles Corrigan, which is correct. Charles Corrigan is a role null. So if I click edit user, this is our back end, front end. So if checked, user role includes technical manager. I'm thinking something like that. Either that'll evaluate to true or false. If that doesn't, then we say false. I gotta do something like this. This might not be the solution, but it's gonna be something that I want to try. So the checked is, this was returning true in the event that there was null, and that's clearly not what you want. Here, user editor, aha, much better. And now we don't have that error. Okay. So now when we go to add, it is null. So in the case when it's null and we go to add our first role, it's having a hard time with that. Which would make me refactor the method to consider that. And so the method where we're adding roles is right here. And again, we can kind of do here. Okay. And so I want to bring back these true block hits and false block hits. And so, you know, what we're doing is now that should hopefully make this hit here. But we might also have to do something like that. Let's just test it without. And so bring back our front end. Let's see if we refresh. Doesn't work. I gotta go back to here and refresh. Okay, edit user, developer, previous user.role is not iterable. Now, I want to see if it hit anyone. It says false block hit, good. Previous user.role is not iterable, good. So it did hit my false block without, so that was false. And what I need to do is, now I need an if block here that says if previous user dot role is truthy, right? So if previous user role is truthy, then you return that, right? Otherwise, there is no previous user dot role. So we will assign previous user dot. Now it's really interesting because now we're accommodating for a case that will not happen in the future, which is no roles. I guess you could unassign roles. So you can remove roles. So there it is, that case. Previous user dot role equals an empty array. And then we can return so if it's already an array, if not, make an array, and that becomes the same thing. So anytime you see the same code twice, you should refactor that to not repeat itself. But this is what I'm thinking, false block hit. If the previous role is truthy, then keep that the same. Otherwise, we need to create the role as an array. Then we spread the previous user role, spread the role, and add the checkbox value. Okay, so let's go back to our user list, refresh, edit user, false block hit. There we go. Awesome. You're seeing you're hitting the different blocks. So to refactor that, so you're not doing it twice. So here's what you do. You say if not previous user.role, then you just do this, and that's the end of your if statement. And then there you go. Now you only have one return statement. So here, if not previous user.role, in other words, if it's not there, then you create it and then you return appropriately. Save that. Awesome. So yeah, it is good to, because just because a user is created with a role, of course you can come in here, remove all the roles and update the user, so you still want to check for nullable roles. So I'll get rid of those console logs now that that is working as intended. And I keep bringing up my back end, front end. Get rid of the console log here, get rid of the console log here. And then what's next is wiring up Axios with our submit button, input type of submit. On click, EVT, arrow, update user, EVT. Okay. I always have a thing for wiring up event listeners, just making sure that they're firing. When you click the button, it runs the function, and it does, but you're going to notice it actually performs a submit. Of course, you need to stop the submit from happening by preventing default, which allows us to go back to our list, refresh our list, edit the user, click on developer, see the developer, click on update user hit. Now let's make this function async so that we can call the await const res equals await Axios. Two parameters. One is a template string, The other is some data. We're going to put this in a try catch block. Catch any errors and handle those errors. Let's indent this. Axios. Back in, let's find our route to update the user. Now it's Axios dot, and then your method, you know, put or whatever it may be. So this is updating a user by ID, update user me, update user by ID. And so presumably our backend is going to check on the permissions to make sure that you have the permission to update the user. And if you don't have those permissions, maybe you don't see the edit button in the first place, which would make sense. We can definitely implement that. But it is a put, and the route is API users and then a user ID. So let's stop looking at our back end. I don't know how many times I'm going to do that today, but slash API slash users slash, and user ID is a variable that we read from params that was sent over when we click the edit button on our user. So dot put, Axios dot put, there's the path, and then the data that we send over is going to be what data? So everything is stored in user and updated in user. Let me look at my back end here at my put route to see what data we're accepting. I know it's like all optional, right? So admin update route. Can edit any user is the permission. And email, password, given name, family name, and role are the different pieces that we can send over. So back on my front end, here's the data. You do email colon user dot email. We don't have a field for password. This is not, you could do a password reset, but not. Given name colon user dot given name. Family name. Okay. So we're updating our user object. We're sending that across in the data. And let's just glance at our bug editor, which is our second argument is an object, and then the third is our headers, right? So after our data, we're going to send in the HTTP headers. Inside of our HTTP headers is a authorization section where you can pass your auth token to your backend for permissions purposes, and then this curly ends the headers. So let me just copy the whole headers portion. Okay, so there's the end of our curly brace for the data, comma, headers. Okay, and if it works, we're going to get a response from our backend that says what? If it works, I scroll down and it'll say success user ID updated. And so maybe for now, we'll do a set success message on the front end, which we need to send in from app. So this is user editor. So here's user editor, and I'll say show success, and I'll take that message from the back end, show success, and show success, passing it res.message. So res will come back as a JSON object. That JSON object will have a success property, which will say user ID updated. Otherwise, and let's give res.status 400. An error occurred, and so that's pretty open-ended. Otherwise, user ID not found. Let's see what breaks. I know I didn't deploy this last change, but not. Okay, so let's go to user list. And let's just update name first. So let's edit user and put an S on my name and hit update user and update user hit, but that's all that happened. And no console log with errors. So my next question is, did it update the user in the database and just didn't show me my success? It did, right? So that's good. It did work. That's the important part. It just didn't show my success message. And so let me track down that mistake on the front end. I'm gonna do that 100 times today. So here's show success, res.message. So if app, this is called show success, it takes in a message. Oh, I know what it is. My toast container is not visible. So my toast container is kind of on my home screen. So I would need to also redirect. So on bug editor, you're going to notice I navigate back to bug list. So maybe on user editor, I navigate to user list. And we got to bring in use navigate. So that's up here, comma, use navigate. And then const navigate equals use navigate, which allows us to call and navigate to user list. Cool. And if I go to user list, you can see here my name was updated. And if I put another S, click update user, better, but it's still not showing me my so app is here showing my toast container, show success. Let me make sure I bring it in, called show success and show success. Let me console log just to make sure that that is a string that I think I'm sending over, a message string, but maybe I'm not. So let me click on that. Let me get rid of the two S's and put an S on Gudmestad. Yeah, so it's coming back undefined. So that's my problem, is my backend's not sending me the message the way I thought. JSON has, oh, it's a success message. What do I call it over here? Message. I'm just going to call this message. Or actually, let's just change it on the, let's just change it on this side. It's res.success. The property was, I thought it was named message, but the property was on the back end. You could see here the property is success. That's my problem. And let's go back to user list. Let's edit user. Let's get rid of the S. Let's click on update user. Okay, we'll get it. So, okay, so it's data.success, res.data.success. So res.data.success. We'd get there eventually. Aha, user jibber jabberish updated. User updated. Dare we remove a role? Heyo. Developer and quality analyst. Now here, I still, good. Think about what happened here. I removed the role of technical manager, therefore I edited myself, but I still had my auth token where I had the permissions. If I would have logged out and logged back in, I would have no longer been able to modify my role. So be careful there. But it makes sense to me. Now if I edit and I add Charles Corrigan as a developer, all right. Very cool. This is awesome. So the next thing that makes sense to me is that if you don't have the permission to edit a user, you know, based on your roles, that you don't see the edit user button. And so that's a pretty easy conditional thing to add in. And I can take out these console logs that if you just leave those in there. And here on my bug editor, let's throw errors on both bug editor and user editor. Let's go to our login form and kind of extract this logic that, you know, it does handle a lot of our cases for our errors that we're going to get, whether it's joy validation or whether it's a string error that we're getting back. You know, again, I'm not sure that it's going to handle all cases, and maybe we need to add to that. So on this login form, I'm going to take this error condition and paste it here. And I have show error brought in to my user editor. So that should give us more detailed error messages if we get, you know, rejected at any point. Right now we're not getting rejected, we're getting success, and that's obviously what I want. And I'm going to paste that there as well. And show error on bug editor is also there. And so on my user editor, here we're just showing, we probably no longer need this user role. I was just troubleshooting that and just making sure that that was coming up appropriately. I'm going to take out that H1. And on my, let's see, user item, user list item, here, pretty much no matter what, we're showing this link. And let me hit the database and look at the different permissions that we have signed up. So if I look at roles, can view data, can create a bug, can edit my bug, can edit if assigned to, can add comments. So can edit my bug. I imagine we had a can edit any bug. Can edit any bug. So that's the permission. It looks like business analyst can edit any bug. And can edit my bug. They can all edit my bugs, I think. Can edit my bug. Can edit. So it looks to me like business analyst can edit any bug. And if I look who's a business analyst, well, I'm going to make Evan a business analyst. Okay. And while I'm at it, I'll just make Evan a product manager. He's got all the permissions. Okay. So logging as Evan as a business analyst, you should be able to see edit user. Wait a minute, that's bugs. I'm talking about editing bugs. I'm talking about editing users. Goodness, okay. Can edit any user is technical manager. That's what I need. Can edit any user. And so here, just like we did on our where did we do that? We showed a conditional on the editor. On the editor, we showed auth payload right here. So that brings me back to the list. No, list item. There we go. List item. I don't want to show edit user unless they have this permission. So I'm going to put this link inside of some curly braces, and I'll say auth payload dot, and it's can edit any user. And now I need to bring down auth into user list item. So user comma auth, and delete that extra curly. And so, you know, app sends auth to user list, I believe. So from user list, we need to send auth down to user list item, which we did. We already sent it down. We just had to receive it on user list item. and double checking can edit any user is a technical manager can't edit any user. Okay. All right, that should be good now. So if I am logged in as Evan, so if I log back in as Evan, user list, I see the edit user button. But if I log out and log in as janesmith@gmail.com, and I go to user list, Jane cannot edit a user, even though she can see, and she is a developer, but she can't edit users. And so you can apply that anywhere, right? As far as conditionally, does Jane have the ability to edit a bug? Well, that's based on what do developers have permission to do. Developers now can edit my bug, which is a whole nother can of worms if you stop and think about it. You would need to show this button based on a couple of things. So let's go, if the bug, right, we have a bug author, if bug.bug author, so we would need to bring in the bug author, has an object ID. So totally doable, but number one, you need to see, okay, can you edit any bug? Then you show the edit bug. Or if the bug's bug author matches my ID, then you show the edit bug. So that's a whole nother fun experiment to go down. Okay, let's go I took a little breather there, but that edit bug situation is something, that's one thing we could work on. It boils down to this is just the beginning of a project, and there's really an unlimited number of things to work on, but to kind of stay focused on the lab and 0503, because again, this is software, and software can do whatever you want it to. And that is something that maybe, we should implement for our final solution, but let's just focus on the task at hand, and then we can kind of decide where to go from there. But, in large part, we're kind of at a good point for this lab, which is to basically create these different elements where we can log in, we can register, we can list our bugs, we can edit our bugs, we can list our users, we can edit our users. And then here, I didn't show this, but this is worthy of showing. You can make a generic element called not found. And it's like, hey, if the user goes to any other path on the front end that doesn't exist, you just display a not found. But we've implemented and completed this lab for now. Now, again, infinite number of things we could work on and improve and make better, but as far as the requirements for this lab, that's that. So let's do that last piece here, and not found. And then that will kind of be it for today, and what's due this week is Lab 0503. One thing that I'm going to work on next, even though this lab will be done, is I'm going to continue exploring the deployment. Right now, everything on the front end is on localhost, And I tinkered with, although I didn't get working deployment to Google Cloud. There are other providers that I have deployed apps to that are just a front end in React in the past, that are fairly easy to set up. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try Google Cloud one more time and see if I can't maybe do a little bit more deeper troubleshooting on that. See if I can't fix it, because if you have one solution, one site that hosts your backend and your front end, I think that would be my ideal situation. But if I can't get Google Cloud working for whatever reason, it's being a pain, there are other solutions that we could explore. And so let's build this not found, and then that'll be the end of this particular video for Lab 053, not found JSX. This is really quite simple at this point. Export function. We can do something as simple as that. This URL does not exist. Please use the nav bar provided to go to good URLs, you silly person. So the idea is like, hey, they can type in whatever URL they want. They can manually type it in, but that doesn't mean that our resource exists. So let's not call them a silly person. Let's bring in route path to star. As demonstrated right here. And so if it's not one of these, element there you go. This URL does not exist. So you get, that's just a more friendly message. Before it would be just like a blank screen. And at least now we can give them a message that say, hey, URL does not exist, versus a blank screen, which is not what we're looking for. So that'll be the end of this video. Again, next I'm gonna tinker with deployment, and that will be the end of the videos this week. Grant, you good?
Yeah, I think so.